to go back and look at the information again about how to get a great start on your proposal, which will then develop into your draft of your lesson and then the final version of the lesson to be presented to class. So what we've included here in your tote are the materials that we suggest from previous lesson experience that might work for you. You're not bound to these materials nor to the lesson, so if you have other ideas, please share those with us. Some of you have very tight schedules and have very busy lives, so if you choose to go with the lesson that we've provided, there is no penalty. You just have to be just as enthusiastic and creative with your presentation as everyone else, and your scores will be very similar. So no penalty for going with the lesson that we've provided. It's just up to you, whatever you prefer. So you have several stages, and you have your course packet that's on Blackboard. The most important thing, I think, is to be really familiar with the procedures and the format of the lesson, and make sure that you've gone through the rubric before you turn it in at any of the stages. We've provided for you a suggested timeline if you want to go on the fast track and finish the bulk of your lesson before midterms, which is what most people like to do. The due dates are set. They are not flexible. Anything turned in after the due dates, even 5 minutes after the due date time, will receive the penalty. And the penalties are substantial because you're given every support beforehand. It gets the other section leaders and everybody else behind when one person turns in something late. So please abide by that. The first thing you're going to do is set up your schedule with your partner. You might have already started to work on that. So your scheduling time with your partner needs to be face-to-face. You're in the same room. You've got 2 computers with you. You can get stuff done fairly quickly that way. You can get this done by email. I guarantee you that it's going to take you twice as long, and it's not going to be of the quality that you'd like. You'd have to do more revisions. I've had a lot of experience with this, so save yourself some time, get together in the same room, and just get your lesson done and have fun with it. schedule to create your own lesson, I'd like you to watch the following video that your section leaders have prepared for you to get you started on your proposal.
This is an engagement portion of the lesson 5 for 6th graders, Space and Gravity. For this lesson, you'll be teaching them about the space and gravity, and to start off, you'll be starting with the little demonstration to represent how the gravity actually works in the space. You'll be using the model that we provide you, washers and the pipes, and what you're gonna do, and you grab the one end, the washer, and you start spinning in front of the students. And as you do that, explain to students that the force is acting on the washers, and also that the washer, which represents a planet in this case, is not rotating because it's not spinning along about its axis. About a minute later, you're gonna pull the end and show that the motions increase as the radius decreases. And the radius here represents the string part.
For the exploration portion of this lesson, you will be using a simulation. If you go to the PhET website, which is provided in the lesson, you can open the gravity simulation. The students will work in pairs, and each pair will have a laptop, and they'll be able to work with the simulation. Before doing the activity, you need to go over who Isaac Newton is and his contributions to science, and how his work with gravity, basically go over his work with gravity and how it affects our lesson today. On the simulation, you will have, there will be a sun and then Earth, and the students can simulate the effects of gravity if the Earth were to increase in size. How would the Earth's orbit be affected? If the sun were to increase in size, how would the orbit change? You can increase both size, decrease both, increase Earth's size and decrease the sun's size, and still see how gravity works on both of them. You can also add in a moon, see how the moon revolves around the Earth, and see how its orbit would be affected if there were to be changes in size in each of them. And the students can make different observations about these changes in orbit and how gravity affects them. What are the forces that are going on? And you can allow this, before going into activity, allow the students to explore the simulation first. Like the UBLEC activity for plate tectonics, the students can get a little bit distracted with having such engaging activity as this. So it's best to have them play around with the simulation, see where all the buttons are. Don't quite tell them what to press. Let them go around and see, oh, what does this button do? Oh, okay, it changes this. Or this speeds up the simulation. So have the students play around with it and discover on their own how the simulation works. And then they can complete the activity once they figure out how to work the simulation. For the explanation portion of the lesson, you'll be going more into detail about how gravity affects the planets. You can have the students discuss their results, what happened when they did certain things, and then discuss our own solar system. How do the planets orbit around the sun? How do their mass affect their orbit? What would happen if these were to change? And the students can use the worksheet if they want while going into these discussions. For the elaboration portion of the lesson, you will be talking about how your weight, how the students' weights could be affected on different planets. If the size of the planet affects its orbit, would the size affect your weight on that planet? But first you have to distinguish the difference between mass and weight. As students have been reminded many times, and you may need to remind them, mass, it doesn't matter. Gravity does not affect your mass. Your mass on Earth will be the same as it is on the moon. Weight, on the other hand, takes gravity into consideration. So your weight on Earth will be different than your weight on the moon or Jupiter. So students will have a worksheet where they'll be able to use conversion and be able to convert their weight on different planets and see that they would be heavier on Jupiter as opposed to another smaller planet where they might be where their weight would be a lot less due to the planet's mass. Then you can discuss different careers in space and gravity. Obviously, NASA is a huge part of careers in this particular field, and discuss different jobs that can happen with NASA. What does NASA do? What do they try to discover? And what has been the impact of all of these discoveries? Even though the shuttle program has been discontinued, they're still sending astronauts into space, even though they're relying on Russia to do that. But you can discuss with students how, without going into space, how are they making these discoveries on different planets? How are they trying to discover life on Mars? This rover that's been launched on Mars, you can go into discussion on that and talk about these different careers and impacts that NASA has had on space. And then finally, for the evaluation, the students will complete a show-it-off worksheet and then have a journal prompt to complete. Always remember to remind your students about the Mini Science Olympiad in May and how they need to pay attention and focus on these questions and review them so that they'll be prepared to compete when they come to UT later.